Hi, Jane. I'm
Hi.
so sorry. Were you in the middle of talking?
Hello?
Hi, were you in the middle of talking?
Sorry, I was just waiting to start and then it kicked me out.
Okay, let's start. Are you ready?
Let me share my screen again. Are you okay?
Yeah,
Wow.
I don't know why I all of a sudden I'm like, I'm out. I'm out.
It said the meeting was in progress and the host had another meeting in progress, which is different
Yeah,
from
it's
last
so
time.
strange.
I
It's
think it
so,
was just a weird Zoom tech issue. Sorry
yeah.
about that.
Okay, should I let them in?
Sure.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sanaz Nabadi. I am on the board of CCDA. I welcome you to our session with Jane Hsu Southwick. She'll be talking about knowing your worth and finding the confidence to ask. She'll be providing research and resources on how to navigate different ways of asking for negotiation or asking for higher rate, work statuses and systematic barriers to advocate for equitable pay. Without further ado, I will introduce you to Jane. Go ahead,
Thank you so much,
Jane.
Sanaz. Can you hear and see me clearly, Sanaz? Everyone? Thank you. Okay, great. So as Sanaz mentioned, yeah, we're in the first presentation the day after the amazing keynote speakers. So I just really, really appreciate your time for stopping by today in this workshop session. I can't wait to get started. So usually I just like to share a little bit about myself. As Sanaz said, my name is Jane. My parents are originally from Taiwan and they immigrated over to the US and I grew up in the East Coast. I grew up in Pennsylvania, went to school in New York. I moved around a lot, but the past maybe 8 years now, I've been in the San Francisco Bay Area and I'm also a mom of three. So for my career, I worked for primarily in higher education. I did like a short stint in the corporate world and the nonprofit world, but most of the time I've been working at the college and university level. Right now I'm an adjunct career counselor. So I work at both the College of San Mateo and Chabot College. Now, last year I actually graduated with my master's in career counseling at SF State. Go Gators! And a lot of my research in the last year was about salary negotiation, self-advocacy. I actually last year at this time I was presenting on a similar topic last year, which was really, really inspiring for me to be able to see some amazing speakers and then be up there. So if anyone is out there pursuing their grad degree, maybe this will be you next year. It was amazing because I got a chance to share a lot of my research. And then this year I want to come back and I see Amy right out there. Shout out to Amy. We decided to present a two-part series. So I've updated a lot of the resources, updated the research that I found to have some new insight for different populations, which is really going to be fun to dive into today. Okay, so usually I like to start in with a little hook, and this is a quick story that I have about my first salary negotiation. And so if you can just picture me as a young first time employee of a 9 to 5 job, I remember my sister specifically telling me, like, you need to negotiate your salary. That's just what you do. And I said, sure, that's okay. I'll try to ask for more. But when the time came when my boss was asking me about, like, this is the salary we're going to offer you. And he said, do you have any questions? And I said, no. And I just took it. Um, and afterward, my sister followed up and she was like, how to go? And then did you ask for, did you negotiate your salary? And I said, yes, yes. And she's like, oh, what happened? And I said, yeah, it didn't work out. And she's like, don't worry about it. That's okay. Like, let's go celebrate. What I think is interesting in my story is not that I didn't ask. I think it's very, very common that many, many, especially entry level employees don't ask, especially their first time job. That's pretty common. I think what's interesting is I felt totally embarrassed and guilty that I knew I should ask, but then I didn't ask. And there's this pressure to ask, but I don't know what I was doing. No one told me how to ask for more. And I think there's something going on there, maybe something related to me raising in a household where we didn't talk about money that's awkward or asking for more, maybe as my gender. Who knows? I think there's something there. So I just want to, first of all, bring a story where I think it's more interesting to hear about people's failures rather than successes. You can relate to people's failures and just open up the door to say, like, this is a safe space to share and talk about something maybe that feels awkward or embarrassing, and to normalize the conversation. That should be our first step. And today I want to dig deeper. I want to uncover maybe an emotional root cause of what is holding people back. I don't actually think it's necessarily they don't know the steps or they can't learn the steps. I think there's something deeper, and I'd love for this to be a space today that we can delve into that. And so just to kind of clarify the two-part workshop series that I'm so excited to be a part of, today we're really going to focus on the culturally competent side of salary negotiation training. We're going to discuss barriers for historically marginalized communities, and then we're going to dive into some relevant research and resources. And then we're going to have some time, hopefully at the end, to break out into rooms because, we should be, not just, hearing a lecture, but talking about this together. And then part two, right afterward, Amy will be taking it to the next level. She's going to take all that information and then turn it into sharing about actionable strategies where you'll be able to really practice sample negotiation scenarios, which is really exciting that we can do this two-part today. Okay, so this idea of normalizing the conversation, I think is really important. Like I said, this is not something normally that you would just, go talk to anyone about, salary. So let's kind of break the ice. Let's like warm up, and let's get to know who else is in the room. So I'm going to open it up. You can either chat this, or I would love to hear some voices today and see who else is here. But please, first of all, just introduce yourself. Your name, organization, maybe even your location in California. And then I'd love to, hear your answer to these questions. Why do you work in career development? Also, what's important to you outside of work? So take, 10 seconds. Let's just sit here and think about what you might want to chat or what you might want to say. And we'll see if we have time for how many people, but yeah, just go ahead.
Hi, Jane.
Oh, hi, Amy. Yes, Amy, I was looking at you hoping you'd volunteer.
I was waiting for someone else, but I'll go ahead. And hi, Sanaz. I'll be seeing you in the next session. Very nice. So, my name is Amy Gleason. I work for UC Irvine Division of Continuing Education in Irvine, and I manage career services there. And why do I work in career development? I'm a career changer. I'm a mid-career to late career changer. And I love helping people change their lives through guiding them mostly into career transitions and upskilling. That's what we do. And what's important to me outside of work, my life outside of work is very important to me. I have lots of leisure activities and reading and relaxing. And when I see the good weather, I want to go to the pool or the beach. So I try to really put everything into my work during the week. And then I am not someone who works on the weekends if I can help it. So anyway, happy to be here with you, Jane.
Thank you, Amy. I love that there's just this passion for both your work, but also, nature, outdoors, and your own time on the weekends. I really resonate with that. I bet a lot of people in California also like to make sure they take advantage of our beautiful state. And Eugenie, thank you for posting in the chat. I love this. Career development is an instrument to a good life. And you also love art and sewing. I love art and needlepoint, Eugenie. Thank you, Molly, also. One more person, Yas or Alexandra, I see your video is on. I love that. I love seeing your face. Alexandra, thank you so much.
Sure. Hi, Jane and everyone. I'm Alexandra Jenkins. I'm starting a private practice again after many years of working for other organizations, including 11 years in biotech at Genentech in-house, supporting career engagement, and then many years at University of San Francisco years ago in the Career Center. So in my heart of hearts, I feel as though I'm still like college age, and recent grads are population near and dear to my heart, although I work with adults of all ages. And why do I do this work? I love hearing people's stories and being part of helping them write the next chapter or chapters for the most rewarding work they can do. And I love art also, and gardening. And I am part of a couple of different volunteer organizations at my son's high school. He's going off to Chico State in the fall, which is exciting.
Woo!
Big part of my life right now, helping him be ready for that. And I spend the summers in Vermont where I grew up. So that's a big part of my life also.
Oh, okay. Alexandra, thank you so much. I love hearing about this, next phase in your career. You are at the college level supporting college students getting young, but now you're thinking about your own practice. So congratulations. I definitely resonate with, with just the big aspect of family in your life, it sounds like, in getting your children ready for the next phase.
Thank
Okay,
you.
of course. And I see the introductions coming in through the chat too. This is wonderful. If you haven't gotten a chance to, please feel free to share, because I'd love to make sure this is a place where not only I get to connect with you, but we all get to connect with each other. So I'm just going to keep on going. So my next slide. So what I want to address is the importance of the why. Obviously, all of us, I think many people are drawn to career development for so many things that all of you mentioned, just this passion for supporting others. It's, a helping career. And I think a lot of the other reasons that you touch upon outside of your work is also probably similar, and you're seeing in the chat, other things that really motivate you. And I think all of those pieces in our life really touch upon why. Why should we advocate for higher starting salary? Because it's not actually just about the money, though that is a huge part of it. So just to quickly go through, of course, financial, not just asking for more money is helpful for you or your client you're supporting at that moment, that year, but the lifetime of earnings and how it can really build. And I wish someone in my 20s had told me more about retirement and compound interest. Like I maybe I wouldn't have listened to them, because it'd be like, I want that money now. I don't want to put it away. But now in my 40s, when I have kids, and I just think, why didn't I just ask for a little bit more each month and put that away, because it'd be so much more now. So always trying to emphasize that. And then for mental aspects, people who are more compensated better at work, they're just more motivated worker. They feel seen at work, they feel appreciated, and they have more of that energy to devote to work. They have better work-life balance because they're not stressed out about their finances. Different parts of California is very, very expensive, and that can be a weighing factor as you're working. And then there's this other aspect of just taking charge of your career trajectory. You're deciding how much you're worth. You're dictating, where you will be valued, rather than someone else telling you. The last piece are the social reasons, and I really resonate with this. I think a lot of other career counselors do. This aspect of like you do it for others. So when you're, of course, asking for a higher starting salary, you're uplifting your dependents, your family. But also, if you happen to identify as female, you're uplifting your entire gender. The more you ask, it normalizes it. You're uplifting your community, whatever that identity that you might identify with. It could be so many different aspects. And then our profession. We did not go into counseling to be paid a very high rate. We do not make as much as the CEOs who run some of these practices or the deans at some of their colleges. So if we can be really proactively working together to ask for more, we can uplift our whole profession. So these are aspects that I always like to intertwine both reasons for ourselves as individuals, and then as well as counselors who are trying to role model that for our clients. Okay, so we're going to go shift into the next phase of the presentation. We're going to talk about how can I give you some resources, some research, some studies, some real data points that hopefully you'll walk away with and feel more empowered to really think about, like, once again, for yourself and as a career counselor. So the first slide in this section is very, very appropriate because I don't know about you, but I loved Dr. Julie Hill's presentation this morning. I was just wowed by her story. And of course, also like all the work that she's been doing. So maybe some of these points won't be so surprising then, but I did want to highlight a study. This is an article that said everything is negotiable, but not for everyone. The role of disability in compensation. So I saw this statistic that actually it's 1 in 4 that the CDC says is of 1 in 4 adults in the US live with some type of disability. So this could very much be many of our clients that we're working with. And so this study, I want to pick out 3 pieces. Number 1 was when they first used a vignette study, they found that people who were given fictitious job candidates with disabilities, they actually were given or received a similar initial starting salary. So no matter what type of disability, they gave them many different types. It didn't really change their starting salary. So I was like, oh, that's good to know that they could start at the same rate. However, once they started negotiating, that's where there are differences. And so when they started engaging in the second study where they did a computer simulation and they started negotiating, then they ended up having a lower offer. And so they also had them like fill out forms and talk about, what was their own perception of going through that process. And many of the candidates who did have a disability, they talked about they perceived discrimination and stigma. And so they saw that as a big piece of the reason why. And I think Julie Hill talked a lot about that too, that what we have to do as counselors is really be thinking about how can we support them and feeling confident to be able to ask. Now, the third study was really interesting too because it wanted to go from the employer side and really get some more data from them. So they also did another kind of fictitious or computer simulated scenario with negotiating. They also had the hiring manager then, answer a survey about their own perceptions about people with disabilities. And they noted that in the final salary rates, they were lower offers to candidates with disabilities. And they really attributed that to some of the aspects of hiring manager bias. A lot of them just were surprised that they were asking for more and just kind of had this adverse outcome then because then they offered them lower starting salary. So just some things to think about. And I put that arrow to the second one because I feel like we as counselors have a lot then to work with to really support these clients and thinking about how can we help them maybe through career constructionism, but different ways to build them up. Okay, the next group that I wanted to focus on was undocumented students. And so for this was more like a qualitative study. They were interviewing undocumented students between the ages of 18 and 26. They were all DACA recipients. And some key takeaways I wanted to bring here were just that the primary barriers that these undocumented students face in terms of workplace and negotiating, economic constraints, of course, they don't have the work status to work here, but a key bigger part was the marginalization, the feeling like that they were isolated, that they couldn't even tell anyone about their status, they didn't know where to go. And then in terms of supporting them, the most effective resources, social support. So an adult mentor in the education system was so impactful, even more sometimes than just their close family and friends, because they could really be a resource for them who had connections and frameworks and tools for them. And they helped them with two aspects: critical consciousness, like really thinking through how their life experiences rather than detriments were assets to them, empowered them, and then also helping build up their proactive personality. Those are strong motivation to reach out for help. And I think as career counselors, we realize like the first step is just really telling them like you need to ask for help. We need to come and come to us or come find a mentor. And those are key takeaways I found. I couldn't actually find an article specifically on negotiating, but these were aspects about self-advocacy for undocumented students. Bargaining while Black. This was an interesting study. I could very rarely find actually negotiation studies for cultural identities. Last year when I presented, I actually found one on Asians. It was called Asians Don't Ask. So they love this alliteration, but this was one I could find for African Americans. And so I was looking through the role of race in salary negotiations. And there's basic evidence that shows that, I think it was Pew Research I have here, college-educated Black men earn roughly 80% of the hourly wage of college-educated white men. And there's studies done and information, but there's not really a lot that digs into like, what about the salary negotiation process? Is that a key piece of why that's happening? So for this study, the key takeaway was they asked participants in general to estimate the likelihood that this is employers, that a job seeker would negotiate a salary offer. And then they also ask these employers to complete a survey about their own beliefs relating to racial bias. So they're pulling information about the employers. And then they have a whole bunch of different type of candidates, not just African-American candidates. But what pulled to the top from this study was that African-American job candidates were more likely to receive lower salaries in relation to negotiation. And once again, not necessarily the starting, for initial offer, but as they're going through negotiations. And it was because in their racial bias evaluation, they believed that they had negotiated too much. There's this perception that certain historically marginalized groups won't be asking, and when they ask more than they anticipated, they're kind of surprised by that. And so I think a takeaway, an overall discussion from this study was talking about how employers must address the less recognized causes of racial pay inequality in order for them to attract more diverse workforce. And so thinking about unconscious bias training or different ways that they can really make sure this is drawn to attention for employers who may not even realize that they have this internal bias. Okay, I have two more groups that I want to cover, and this next one is about the gender wage gap. So this has been documented for a long time, the gender wage gap between men and women. And it was Amy who actually pointed out that the AAUW has this amazing way of visualizing this as an equal pay day calendar. So basically, if you can imagine that a white man, the entire amount of time that they're working from last year, and then imagine that the rate that they get is January 1st. Then the payday calendar is marking off in the calendar how many extra days a woman might have to work to earn just as much as a white man. So you're starting on January 1st, that's an amount. And then March 25th apparently was this year's equal pay day. So a woman in general would have to work all the way until March 25th to earn the same amount as a white man. And then actually in this calendar, it broke down then different groups of women because there's of course other intersectionality identities. And so it listed out for AANHPI, for mothers, so for parents who are working, LGBTQ, Black women, Native and Hawaiian Pacific Islander women, Latina women, women with disabilities, and then Native American women, equal pay day, November 18th. And I feel like sometimes when you see different data like, oh, 80 cents to the dollar, blah, 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 blah. I hear that in and out, but something about the calendar, something about visualizing January all the way to November and realizing that someone has to work like almost a full year to make the same amount, that was just very impactful for me at least, and I hope it was helpful for you. So then that goes to one of my last research articles is one about the differences in gender, how to reduce this gap. And the big takeaway was fixing the system, not the woman, which I really appreciated. So basically to explain, they researched initiatives about how to increase how often and how women negotiate. And then they realized that pushing women to negotiate like men was not always successful. I'm actually not surprised because I've heard this before that women who are trying to be assertive come off as almost too much, aggressive. And so the article then really looked through data points that talked about shifting this idea from fixing women to actually focusing on policies that fix the institution. And so different institutional changes, for example, could be banning negotiations completely, banning requests from employees to share their history, and improving just wage transparency overall. One limitation I definitely want to mention is there's barely any information out there about people who identify as non-binary and how do we gather information to also better support them. Okay, last article, which I think was really, really relevant to me as a working mother, maybe to some of you in the room. So there are studies that talk about working parents, not specifically about negotiation and salary negotiation, but I think this is very, very tangential and I think really great takeaways. So this specific article talked about, it started with the motherhood penalty, which maybe if you can't guess, there's this penalty that they call, basically that's just kind of grouping, maybe there's discriminatory practices or experiences that mothers might face at work, parents in general who are trying to balance their family and their work life, and it could be just barring them from higher salary or barring them from promotion. What I like about this article, though, is it also drew information about this idea of motherhood advantage. So I like this positive spin. It talked about how when you become a parent, there might be this penalty, but also you gain so many skills. You gain so many skills in time management. You gain so many skills in how to better collaborate, how to be a stronger leader. And there's also this camaraderie. And I have felt this definitely at the workplace, that I feel a deep connection with other parents and just sharing about how we balance our career as well. And then in terms of counselors working with them, there could be individual strategies that you're supporting parents, maybe through counseling, of course, but also helping them navigate understanding women's rights and labor laws, maybe also sharing more about financial literacy and better budgeting. Those are all strategies. But what I really liked was, let's shift, just like the other article, let's shift to systemic strategies. So what about just making sure that there's clear community family support overall, making sure there's better female and just parent role models in the workplace. That was key for me as a young parent, seeing a boss who was already managing that in a positive way. And then workplace policies. There could be so many. So even if you don't feel like you're able to negotiate your salary, what about asking about parental leave, better work arrangements, breastfeeding on site, childcare, wellness programs? So many different things that I didn't even think about before, but as I'm a working parent, I was a key part of several years as I was raising my children. And many of my clients now who are community college students who are also managing, looking for a job, and they're raising their family. Okay, so this is a lot of information, and so I just want to take a moment for self-reflection. So kind of let it all sit there. And I have this mirror because I want us to think about, number one, as an individual here, what were pieces of these articles or research or studies that maybe you feel, you resonate with, touch upon some of your identity, your experience. And then, of course, as a counselor, you're probably working with such a diverse group of clients, of students. Maybe it also impacts some of the population that you're working with. Also, I always like to note with this research, I think it's so interesting. This is why I continued, looking for these type of studies and gleaning this data even after grad school. But also, they aren't just research articles. I always like to mention, I feel that they don't always encapsulate your full identity, your intersectional identity, just because it's mentioning a group that had a small sample size. So always just want to acknowledge that. Okay. So this is a midpoint section that I want to pause, see if there's any comments or questions, and then we'll move on to some resources to move on to. Okay. Well, there's nothing in the chat, and I just drank my water. Ooh, Lisa. First gen may also equal first career. Yes, need support. Yes, yes. Thank you so much, Lisa. I really appreciate your chat. Actually, I was looking a lot, at least last year, for first generation articles and research, specifically around salary negotiation. There's barely anyone who's specifically diving into those two topics together. I did my own phenomenological study. Basically, in grad school, I was surrounded by first-gen graduate students. So I just, asked them all their, background experiences with salary negotiation. I can't remember all the answers off the top of my head, but the general consensus was that none of them had done salary negotiation training, even though they were in a counseling program in grad school, like very well-resourced school, but they had never sought it. They didn't really think about that necessarily. And then even though they didn't seek it out before, they all, though, had some great ideas of how they could be better supported in that area. And honestly, once again, it wasn't necessarily like, oh, I need the steps written out. Sure, that'd be nice. But they talked more about having a counselor who would address their identity first. They would address that fear of being first in their family, and then that fear of speaking out and asking for more, having a handout. They really wanted the counselor to really dig into some of those kind of personal qualities and really get to know them more to be able to build that confidence. So I thought that was really, really helpful, and it made a lot of sense. Yeah. Okay, thanks once again, Lisa. Okay, so moving on to some resources, of course. So once again, Julie Hill, I was so thankful that she spotlighted Jan because that was the first resource I was going to mention, Job Accommodation Network. This is the leading source of free expert confidential guidance. So they have one-on-one services. You can contact them. They'll talk to you. They'll talk to the employer. They'll explain. So I can send a PDF of these slides out, but I have links not just to the basic website, which she was showcasing in the keynote, but also some examples I thought that really stood out to me, like there's this training module where it shows the counselor talking to a client with disability and then walking through multiple phases of how the client is dealing with the interview, when and how she's going to disclose her disability, her fears about it, her anxiety. Then they role model her with the employer. It just really walked it through. And I think training videos like that are key to us as practitioners to really see role modeling and just really envisioning different scenarios. Then there's also other things like how to request and negotiate a reasonable accommodation, but then even sample language for a request letter. So I really loved how it broke it down. And I think now that she even pinpointed exactly how to use the A to Z list, I have even more ideas then to use this resource. Okay. The next resource spotlight is Upwardly Global. This is a national nonprofit. I used to volunteer with them and I job coach with them. I think they're just so amazing. So they're a leading organization that focuses on advancing workforce inclusion for work authorized immigrants, refugees, asylees. So this is a key part. To be eligible, they're really focusing on international workers who came from another home country, who have degrees in their home country, who probably have high degrees, had master's degrees, doctorates. Then they move to the US and they're unemployed or they're underemployed. And then as long as they have work authorization and some certain criteria, like they've been here, it could be within the last 10 years. They don't have to be fresh from their country. Then they're eligible. They can sign up for free career coaching. They can sign up for industry specific career services, employer networking. Now, a lot of it is virtual so that they can use it in different states. But if you are in a state where there's a hub, like in San Francisco, there's an office, they have a little bit more in-person opportunities. And the newest thing that I just realized was they have state licensing guides. So if you click on that link, you go over to the website, you click on California, it will walk through in a very, very nice, helpful way, like what is the steps to become an accountant in California, to become a teacher, to become a lawyer, like to become there's another one, a pharmacist, just a lot of guides. And I felt that was actually a key part that I didn't really have a lot of background in other industries that I really need to see that really step by step. Because I have a lot of accounting students who are international at the community college that I work at. And so that's been really great to be able to direct them to that. Okay, next resource spotlight, Higher Ed Immigration Portal. So this portal offers data, policy analysis, resources. I think it brings together 38 plus partner organizations and tries to really make this inclusive approach on this portal. And their main goal is to support DACA, undocumented, refugee, other immigrant, international students. So what about all of those people who are moving to the US who don't have work authorization? And so this is a little trickier. I always feel like I'm in a bind when I'm trying to figure out what is the best way to support our undocumented students with workplace options. At our district, there is a fellowship that they've created where they're able to pay them a stipend, that's not a salary. But on here, there's example services, a couple more ideas for legal pathways for work for non-citizen students. And then just guidance, something basic like how to answer interview application questions. So they'll go through back and forth. What if the interviewer asks you this question? Is this legal or illegal? And then kind of providing them some advice on how to answer. So that was really helpful. Okay, my final resource spotlights are actually not platforms or websites. They're more just like counseling frameworks that were really, really critical for my graduate learning, and I still practice them today. So maybe they feel very familiar to you from your graduate research or your day-to-day, but just in case, I want to walk through them. So one is this Community Cultural Wealth Framework by Tara Yasso. And so basically it's thinking about, I think it's very common for career counselors to think about a strengths-based approach, that's very natural. It's very, I think I try to do that all the time. What I think this does is take it to the next level for us. So it basically examines 6 forms of cultural capital that students of color or different marginalized backgrounds, they might experience these 6 forms of capital. And I think it kind of takes something that maybe before they thought was a detriment and then turns it into an asset. So something very, very common could be linguistic capital. So they might feel like my English is not very strong. I have a stronger native language, but then we talk about how actually you have linguistic capital. Like since you were young, you've been translating for your parents, and this is such an amazing skill. Let's talk about how we can transform that and talk about that in a really strengths-based way in your interview, in your application. And so that's a common one. The ones that I really like to dive deeper into now is thinking about, let's say, aspirational capital. So really this ability to maintain hope and dream for the future, even though they've been going through challenges and systemic barriers for so long. Other students, I might say, like they didn't really have to go through that, but you're empowered by that. So, and then you keep on coming up with new ideas and then kind of strategizing creatively. Where else could you fit in the US workplace? So if you go through and see, I think like for me, I just kind of keep it as a little checklist for myself. Are there other areas of their background that I hadn't really delved into that they might feel a little insecure about, but that we can talk about how they can shift that and then really show it as a strength, once again, when they're sharing their career story, when they're applying, when they're interviewing. Okay. And so my last framework I want to spotlight is the ACA advocacy competencies. One of my professors at SF State was Rebecca Toporek, and she was one of the main researchers who really tried to create this framework in something that was, able to visually understand for counselors to think about. So I'm always really bad at explaining this little box, but if you can see over here on the left side first, it's just the client-student relationship, which I think is day-to-day for us. We're working with clients, we're working with students. And so most of the time we're acting with them, which is that top box. We are empowering the student just through, our counseling methods, that framework I just mentioned as example. And then down below, there's another level, and you can not just act with them in the room together, but you can act on their behalf for the student. So maybe, talking with their teacher on their behalf and explaining situation and just, advocating for them on a regular level. So that's, I think, once again, something that we're doing day to day that's like while we're drawn to our profession, it's already ingrained in the way that we're working. Now over here, what I circle in red is just that next level, which I think most counselors are also doing, but just highlighting it some more. Because I feel like a lot of my articles talked about, sure, you can empower the student in the counseling, room, but there's so many things that are beyond the counseling scenario. There's so many things that require fixing the institution on an institutional level. And so that probably needs to encourage us to figure out how can we act more on the community level or maybe on the public arena level to advocate for our students. And so examples that I just put here are, let's say you're working in career development and you do have more access to working with employers and alumni relations. Then maybe it's just really thinking through more inclusive practices and trainings that you can offer to partner with the employers or alumni, or to maybe they already have them and just, sharing them more with your students, bringing in more diverse guest speakers about different jobs and really letting them see themselves in different career modes that they didn't think that they were even able to pursue. And just the internship and job development strategy. What are these organizations that we're guiding them toward? Where are we doing on-campus recruitment? Do we want to expand that list? And then beyond that, external organizations. Now, I know we do so much in our 9 to 5, but if you have the time, you're already doing it today, attending these kind of conferences, maybe even publishing research, presenting, joining advocacy groups. Just recently, I actually attended a great conference. It's called CCCAOE. I'm really bad at the acronym. California Community College Association for Occupational Education. So at this conference, it was in Sacramento, and they talked all about this policy summit that they wanted to encourage everyone to go to. And they said that if you go to the policy summit we have each year, we will actually train you on how you can talk to legislators about important educational topics in California's, state bills. And then they'll set up a meeting with legislative staff members to lobby for these issues. Because I was thinking, like, I would never go to, I don't know, the Capitol. I wouldn't know who to talk to, how to talk to them, even though I'm very passionate about certain issues. And they are saying, like, we'll guide you through that. So there's advocacy groups that will help walk you through that if you're curious about it, if you need support in becoming that public arena advocate. And so that's maybe an idea to get active in state and industry policy. Okay, that was a lot of talking. I'm going to take a sip of water. And so I always like to make sure that in any of these presentations at CCDA, we tap into our own network. There's the power of us all working to, gathering together today rather than just like listening remotely on a virtual webinar. I want us to be able to chat about these topics, to be able to connect together. So I've devoted some time at the end of our time right now for a breakout group. And I think hopefully, that mini warm up in the beginning where we got to hear about our passions and our excitement for working in this area makes you feel like this is a safe space that you can ask some questions, that you can delve into some of these topics together. And so I just have some very basic conversation guides. And you can pick and choose any of these, whatever you would like in your room. Maybe you want to talk about your own salary negotiation story because there's not a lot of spaces that allow you to be able to share that story. So why did you negotiate or why did you not negotiate? Or maybe talking about what was a primary challenge that you feel to practice self-advocacy or that you feel that your clients are facing. You could chat about something new that resonated with you today that you want to try to explore, that you think that you want to learn more about. And of course, if anybody else has some relevant resources to share, I would love to hear about them and to be able to distribute even more about them. And while you're in the room together, don't forget, share each other's contact information. This is our chance to meet across different cities in our state. So I'm going to look for, oh, Sanaz, maybe you're going to have to help me. Breakout room functionality. Do you see anything?
Yes, I'm trying to do that. 3 in a room. Maybe I'll just choose, 3 in a room. And then it just manually does it. Is that good?
That sounds great. And Sanaz, remind me, we have until 10:50, so we're gonna have to do like just a couple, maybe 2 in a room actually would be more likely.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a couple minutes and then we'll just wrap up very fast at the end.
Okay. Okay. Let's do that.
Thank you so much, Sanaz.
No problem.
So go ahead, talk with someone else in the room today. Thank you so much.
Oh, no problem. But the majority left. It's only 2 of us. Everyone left.
Oh, did it not go into breakout rooms?
No.
Oh.
Oh no, they are. Oh, they went into those rooms, but Kathleen is alone. And then let's move
You want to
her.
bring Kathleen back here? You mean she
Move
doesn't
her.
have a person?
Yeah. Because they put you in a room. Okay. Okay, so that's the, oh my goodness. Do you want to go and see, like, interact with them? I can stay here.
That's okay, because it's such a short amount of time. I just want to give them a chance just to talk to somebody today, but I don't need to.
Oh, okay. And then,
Yeah.
when do you want them to come back and ask questions?
Yeah, let's do another, what time is it right now? My clock is looking at
10:46.
46. And when we end at 10:50, they'll still have 10 minutes until the next session. Is that right? And we can
Mhm.
kind of, if any stragglers want to stick around. Okay, let's do until 10:48, and we'll give like 2 more minutes at the
Okay.
very end for me to wrap up everything.
Okay.
And what I'll do is stop share. Anything that resonated with you today, Sanaz, in the lecture?
No, I love the resources you shared. These were amazing.
Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah.
The resources were really great.
Yes.
And also the likelihood of different populations to negotiate or not. That was really great too.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad. Thank you. Okay, it's 48. Let's close the breakout rooms. Does it do like a 60-second countdown?
Yeah, it's 33 seconds.
Yeah. I remember that.
and then blast off.
The hour goes so fast.
It really does, yeah.
This day is gonna just whiz by.
Come back, people.
This means that it was good because they really like talking with each other. That's a good sign, huh?
Yeah. There they are.
Okay. Hi, everyone.
Welcome back.
I'm so sorry I had to pull you away from your conversations. I was telling Sanaz, if you didn't come back at the 60-second countdown, that's a really good sign. You were chatting with each other, making connections. Okay, well, I just want to pull everyone back for the last minute or two because I have my references here and just like a final, like if there's a moment to share any overall comments or questions for the big group, I want to give that space. I can definitely stay, longer than 10:50 to wrap up. And I'm going to find the PDF and I wonder if I can share. Oh, I can't share files, but Sanaz, will we send like files to the participants or like a copy? Can I send a copy of the presentation out afterward? Is that already going to be taken care of in some way?
No. If they want, they could put their email addresses and then we could copy it and send it that way.
Yeah.
But
Actually, I couldn't do it earlier, but now I can. See if this PDF will load in the chat and if you're able to download it. Because I want people to have the hot links to any of those resources later on. Do you see it? Let me know if it's an issue. Sometimes I feel like Zoom is tricky.
Yeah, that's great, Jane. And also it is recorded. Everyone's going to get the recordings as well.
That's true.
yes, that's true.
Okay, so yeah, like in the last minute or so, any comments, any questions?
I just wanted to say that I really enjoyed the resources that you shared and the advocacy, particularly the advocacy element. I mean, I really think we both like when we work with individual people, but we also need to think about this, the bigger picture. And I really like that. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Eugene. It's so nice to meet you. I know we do so much as counselors, and it's a lot to ask, but we're here today, so obviously we carved out a little bit to come to professional development. So hopefully, yeah, you'll find something that fits you in terms of advocacy. There could be so many different ways.
And there's a lot of need for it right at the moment, by the way.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah, I mean, there's a
Definitely.
lot of cuts being proposed for workforce development and education. And it's just, yeah, it's time to write to your congressperson, wherever you are.
Yes, completely, Eugenie. This is the time, if anything. Alexander, thank you so much for your chat.
You're welcome. May I add something verbally, or is there
Yeah,
not
of
time?
course, please. Like I
Um,
said, I'll stay on if it's okay with Sanaz.
I just remembered that a good friend of mine, my college roommate, called me when she was negotiating salary recently for a higher ed position. And they told her they were pretty much at the top of their range with her. And it was still lower than what she was hoping for and lower than what she had come from.
Yeah.
And she wasn't sure whether to ask for more. And anyway, through our conversation, she did come up with a few reasons why she felt like she was exceptional for the role, and they gave her more. So that's the short. I'm not sharing my suggestions or techniques necessarily, but it's a recent success in the work world. And I think we hear so many sad stories about what's happening in the work world right now. I wanted to share a positive one.
Thank you so much, Alexandra. I love that. And I love how your college roommate still seeks you out for advice all these years later, right? It's just so nice to be part of that little bit of journey when a friend calls out and you can help them with that. That's amazing. And I think in Amy's workshop next, she's going to walk through those strategies very clearly and have that practice time to bring them to life, because talking about them and thinking about advocacy is one thing, but let's, also practice them and just make it feel like it's rote, right? It's just like so natural to ask for more.
Can I ask a question about the California Community College Association for Occupational Education? So, can you you had mentioned that they have like, is that their organization? What do they do actually?
Good question. So this is my first year ever exploring this organization. Usually I would go to, something like NCDA or NACE, but because I'm a little newer to the California Community College landscape, I want to just dive a little bit more. So I would say as just a note that there's barely any career counselors who go. It's a lot more workforce development practitioners, a lot of deans, a lot of faculty who are working on career education, career technical education. But I thought it was pretty cool because I felt like I was learning all new stuff. For let's say in the community college system, you need to really learn more about credit for prior learning. So how can you help people have a military background or different experiences in the workplace? How can we help them go through the bureaucratic process of actually getting credit for that? That was a new area I'm not really a part of, but I want to learn more about. A lot of it was about maybe apprenticeships and how to work with faculty and industry partners to create really robust apprenticeships, and especially in sectors where it's just so hard to get your foot in the door. So those are maybe some examples. They had a student panel which talked a lot about actually how the career counselor or academic counselor is a primary frontline person to be supporting in this whole system of just opening up their eyes about occupations. So I thought it was great. They offer it twice a year in the fall and the spring. And then that policy summit is almost like a separate opportunity. It's not the regular conference that they help students or help practitioners or anybody out who wants to go to the Capitol and talk to some people in Sacramento.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Of course.
Does anyone else have questions?
Okay.
Okay, I have one more actually.
Oh, good.
Well, okay, so there was somewhere in the presentation that you mentioned these guides for like how you go
Yeah.
from B to C to D.
Uh-huh.
Where was that again?
Yeah. You know what? We have a moment. Let me just share my screen. I'll show you. I think this is so helpful. They did not have it before. Let me go to, okay. Upwardly Global is a nonprofit, completely free for any client who is eligible. They have work authorization. They've been here. And this link right here goes to their state licensing guides. I hope this is loading okay. Okay, so on this part of their website, they don't have it for every state, but for California they do. And they've been building out these guides. So like I said, there's a lot of accountants I'm working with. I honestly cannot tell you that much about CPA process. I get really confused about it. But they'll lay it out in a very easy to read way about, CPA, the board, employment, and then it'll kind of talk about the eligibility. These are the different, table of contents, the test, the time, the cost. So I felt that one and like teaching, there's a lot of people who want to teach because they have this foreign language, but I was kind of unclear what that process. That was another one that's been pretty popular. I'm gonna go back to that mainly. So there's not every license, but a lot of pathways. So this could be really helpful.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Here, I could even just chat this. Okay. Okay, so Sanaz is reminding me that we're very close to our next session. So thank you so much for attending today. It was so nice to meet you, Alexandra, Eugenie. Yeah, this was such a pleasure. So I hope that you keep in touch and that we can, continue working with finding ways to help our students and our clients self-advocate.
Thank you very much, Jane, everybody.
Of course.
And please don't forget the evaluation. Really appreciate it.
I'll do that now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. This has been great.